This is Kat Sturtz from rockingyourpath.com with another episode of Fast Action Fridays. Today, my special guest is a dear friend and sometimes a JV partner, joint venture partner on various products and services and interviews and all kinds of stuff we've done, and roommates at a business conference. Her name is Charlene Burke from down near the Louisville, Kentucky area, and she's the founder and owner of Search by Burke. Charlene, so glad to have you back on Fast Action Fridays. You are one of my top productivity experts, and I know we think a lot alike on how to do these things, but our approach to things is different, which is great because not everybody has the same temperament or personality or habits, good or bad, but we can always increase our productivity. And you're going to share that with us today. But first, I'd like you to introduce yourself a little bit. Tell us a little bit more about you and what you offer.
Well, hi, Kat. Thank you. Thank you. It is such a pleasure to be back on with you. I've missed your Fast Action Fridays. I miss being on them. And yes, we are friends and we do think alike. Well, one of the things that I do is that I make sure people get things done. And I do that because of my background. I can do that because of my background in engineering and marketing. I have been in corporate world for too many years to count, and 11 years ago I started Search by Burke because I knew I could do things better, more efficiently, and turns out I can. Also what I do with Search by Burke is I research, and that's really primarily what I do as an information professional. I look for the answers to many people's questions, and that ranges from a project of, Charlene, is this business legitimate? All the way up to and including deep dive competitive intelligence and business analysis to determine if the marketplace is really where this new product needs to go. Well, from that, I also write. I write from the research that I do. And it turns out that most of my clients need some type of writing done. So often I will do small research and create an ebook or a small report or a series of articles or a series of blog posts for a customer. And finally, starting in 2008, I started hosting mastermind groups for small business owners and honing my facilitation skills as well as taking training. So I am considered a professional facilitator. While I do training, really where my superpower is facilitating discussions with peer groups and ensuring that outcomes are met from those discussions. And in the meantime, when I do have time, and because I own my own business, I make sure I have time, I love to shoot pool and watch sci-fi movies. That's me.
And trust me, folks, she does the pool thing like weekly in tournaments all over the United States as well as home. So you're pretty good at that. But the bottom line is you're one pretty busy woman.
Mm.
And if you didn't incorporate your own productivity habits, you wouldn't be able to serve, one, as many clients as you could do, two, with the range of services that you offer, even though like the services I offer, there's a thread of similarity that runs between all of them, and provide them in a timely manner. So we're going to go into some tips you have for us on how we can be more productive in our business lives, especially on a daily basis. So what can we do? What are your tips for taking fast action here?
All right, so to begin with, I am often asked, well, Charlene, it looks like you do so much and you are so busy. How do you do it all? And in reality, it sounds like a lot. doesn't it? When you list all the things you do, just as you, Kat, or anybody watching this, if you were to sit down and list all the things that you do and have done for the past few months for yourself and your clients, it looks overwhelming and incredibly impossible. And yet it's not. And it's not because, as you had said, each task, each thing that I do, each service I provide, there's a common thread. And that common thread is I have an expertise in it, and it's all based on productivity or effectiveness, right? So there are systems and processes in place. What keeps me on track, and one of the first things that I did that really has served me well, is I have a very clear goal for my business. And that goal, and part of it's the vision, it's the reason why, all the things that you hear about out there. But the reality is, I want to make this much money doing this in my business. How am I going to get there? How is that going to happen? And what does that look like when I get there? While I have that, and when I have that, I am able to say no to projects and customers and opportunities that do not fit in line with my ultimate goal for my business. Yeah, it sounds like fun. Yeah, it sounds like it could be a good time. And that could be good money. I've turned down big projects. But you know what? It's going to take me completely away from what I do in my business. So I stay in my lane. When I do get overwhelmed, and I do, because I'm human, and what will happen is I'll get in conversations with people. It's not so much that I have too much going on. I get myself distracted. And when I do that, what'll happen to me is I'll get up in the morning and I'll have my list from last night of the things that I'm supposed to be doing today, and it just doesn't make sense for some reason. It's like this brain fog suddenly hit, and this doesn't make sense. I think I should be doing this and this and this.
Yeah, and it's not what many of us would attribute to procrastination.
No, and that's just it. It ultimately is procrastination, but it's that feeling of harriedness. By the end of the day, I'm trying to do a few things, and I'm not clear. I'm not clear. There's no clarity. And I'm trying to do what's on the list, and yet my heart's not. You all know what I'm talking about. Well, if that happens too often, meaning I actually go into the next day, then I need to get some quiet time. I need to walk away and clear my head and get out, and I'll be gone for 30 minutes. Maybe I'll go to the gym. Maybe I'll go to the pool hall. But I need to get out, away. And when I come back, if the list still doesn't make sense, if it's just not jiving, I sit down and I need to look at, is it really in line with what I'm doing in my business? Did something sneak in? And then I choose the priority for the day. And it doesn't happen often. It's just that when it does, I need to be able to look at all my tasks and say, this is the most important one. Everything else gets pushed to the side. So it's a matter of being able to choose the priority for the day, work on that, and then the other things start falling in place.
Exactly.
So that helps, right? It's a process.
Yep. And that's one of those things where you and I are very much in alignment, not only in thought, but in habit. I have a primary project for the day that has to have work done on that. And because of my personality type, which I fully own, I don't like to get bored. And I do have a lot of different interests. And I can add in those other interests, those other projects, because I've planned what that priority for the day is. And then I can go play or work in those other areas. It works. So tip number 1, have a clear goal for your productivity. Is that correct?
Yes. That is correct. Be clear on what that goal is. And you can be clear on that goal for the day, for the week, for the month, for the quarter. If 6 months from now it's too big, right? That's the other thing that I've come across with people I've worked with, is that sometimes that I do not want to change the world. I just want to change my environment right now. I don't like my office. I want to move. What's it going to take for me to move? It's going to take selling these 3 things. I need to sell these 3 things. I'm good. Let's go. So bringing it down to what can you do today, right now, and then doing it.
So those goals aren't etched in stone. We are allowed to tweak them, but we need to think about why we're tweaking them.
Yes.
And the purpose of them, and
yes,
what
and make sure that
solution they'll bring us. Yes.
Make sure they're still in line with the ultimate goal for the business.
Right.
That's the key, is make sure that what you're doing right now is really in line with achieving the goal you have for your business.
All right. I know your I know your tip 2, that's a tongue twister, has to do with how you can make tip 1 work better for you. And that is something that you are an expert in. You mentioned before about facilitating masterminds, and masterminds include often an accountability partner. So
they do.
Too.
So the value of an accountability partner that shows up, and that's key, is invaluable. And the past couple of years, people have been seeking accountability partners with not so good results. And I'm seeing that online. I see it in a variety of social media groups, Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter, and a couple of private forums on Delphi forums that I'm part of. And people are asking for accountability partners, and then questioning, should I get one? And the responses are all, 90% are, oh my gosh, the worst thing you'll ever do, because they won't show up. They don't know what they're doing. You really don't get anything done. And what I've seen since 2014, when I started offering this, is that when people understand what it means to be accountable, it makes all the difference in the world. And then when they understand what it means to show up, things get done. So what I did was I took my mastermind groups, they still continue, and then I started a separate program simply called Get It Done. And it really is project focused. It is helping and guiding people to really figure out what actually does need to get done now to achieve the goal 3 months, 6 months, 1 month down the road, whether it's an online course or increasing sales, making sales calls, or creating a website or a new product, or whatever project that has been set aside unfinished to languish and eventually get thrown into the pile of the cemetery of unfinished projects. You can revive it and bring it to life again. Because sometimes what stops us is we get overwhelmed, or we can't tap into why this is really important to what's happening in my business. Or in some cases, some people who are similar to you but don't have your discipline, is they get bored because the project actually will take much longer than they think it should. So 2 weeks into it, they drop it. So having said all that, what will happen is people will ask for an accountability partner. They'll show up and not know what to do with each other. That's what it boils down to. And I know how to be an accountability partner. It is one service I offer, one-to-one, but primarily it's my groups that people get the most out of. And it's a good experience to be able to learn how to chunk things down from goals to tasks to milestones and keep track. I keep track for you. But I also, by modeling my behavior, am teaching others how to be a better accountability partner.
Yeah, that's great. So what's tip number 3 in terms of increasing our productivity, taking in account that we've also already talked about having a clear goal, how helpful or non-helpful an accountability partner can be, depending on if you have clear goals for and a system for facilitating that. So what's number 3?
Number 3 is one of the most valuable tools and skills I have at my disposal for my business and my life. And it is quite simply the ability to press pause.
Yeah.
I have full control over pressing that button, and it gets pressed. I will be in situations that I am overwhelmed, and it's not work. I am a true classic introvert. All right. So if I'm around too many people for too long, I start shutting down. One of the ways I'm able to manage that is prepare myself ahead of time, knowing I'm going to be in this situation. This happened just recently over the weekend. And I did well on Friday and into Saturday. And I was surrounded by hundreds of people in a very hot room. But I pressed pause. And what that means is I made a conscious decision to take a step back and just do nothing except breathe. I press pause. I don't have to talk to you. I don't have to write on this. I don't have to finish this video. I don't have to do anything but take a breath and understand that I am who I am right now, right here. And if I have to take another breath, which sometimes I do, because I can, you see, I have that control. I can press that pause button for as long as I need to gather my thoughts, to gain clarity and be able to move forward again. So I consider that to be a tremendous skill with staying on task and being productive, doing things on purpose, and maintaining a level of productivity so I'm not getting scattered and harried and anxious.
Right. And as you didn't use these words, but I know it's implied in what you said, and they are words that my community has heard me say. This has to be a guilt-free pause.
Oh.
You have to be willing to take it and then not feel guilty about taking it. I try to build in a certain amount of pause days that I know from experience I'm going to need. I am an ambivert. I'm an introvert or an extrovert, depending on the situation and what I'm choosing in the moment. So I can be very outgoing. People will think I'm an extreme extrovert in certain situations, not realizing that I'm choosing to put myself into that place. But I like my alone time. And I know from experience that my energy level will drop like someone who is diabetic, whose insulin has gone. And after an away conference in particular, or extended days of concentrated work on a single project, I need a down day. And I build those into my schedule. I look at my schedule, it's like, okay, I'm going to be gone 3 days to this conference. There's no appointments that next day. If I get up and I decide to do some work, that's just extra. That's gravy. But there's no guilt if I take that day off. So building those in helps. And sometimes you don't have the opportunity to build it in ahead of time, which is where your tip comes in, is allow yourself to press that pause button. I get this image of that Staples easy button. Just put the word pause over it instead.
That's it. And here's what it looks like. I'm in a conference, and I am feeling the anxious start. Those who are introverts get this. The anxiety starts because I'm getting too much stimulus, too much coming at me. And I can go to the restroom and breathe deep and start over. And when I press the pause, that's sometimes what I do. I used to do it in corporate, and that's what I do today, which is, this is too much. I want a do-over. I can. I can remove myself sometimes, right? sometimes it has to be a mental pause, and that's good. It's just not as effective as go to the bathroom, take a breath, decide, guess what? I'm starting over. That's it. I'm just starting over. And the times I cannot do that is when there are it's just too much is happening. That happened to me over this weekend. And it's something that I'm still trying to figure out how to manage myself better. But when there's hundreds of people, there's no place to go, and my part in what we're doing is constant. I cannot remove myself because other people are depending on me to be there. That's something I'm still working on. It doesn't happen a lot, but when it does.
So it's important to understand that pause could be just for a brief moment and internal, or it can be like my dedicated day pause after an event, which you probably needed after this event, because you brought up a really good point that we do have responsibilities and obligations that we choose to meet in certain circumstances. And we choose to pause the pause button to get through it.
Well, that's just it. You nailed it. To me, it's all about, this is my decision. I could have left that event anytime over the weekend, anytime. I could have gotten in my vehicle and just come home and said, to heck with this. But I didn't. I was committed to what I was doing. I was dedicated. I knew that it was a short-term discomfort for long-term gain. That's all it was. So while in the moment, that's also what I remember. And that's what got me kind of through. It's just the physical exhaustion was really something that I would like to manage better. Mentally, I was there. Mentally, I was telling myself, hey, this is temporary. This is just, just for today, just for now. It's really okay. It's not that big a deal. Those are the kind of things I tell myself on a regular basis when I'm in a very hectic environment, right? That's outside of what I prefer, because we all have a preferred working environment. But it still is, I know me, and I planned nothing for Monday. And I was cross-eyed all day, and I was okay with that. I don't have any problem being cross-eyed, and I don't have any problem being brain foggy, because that's just what it is.
But we don't beat ourselves up for that.
There's no reason to.
I think that's the key difference between people who remain in overwhelm or remain in frustration or remain angry at themselves, is that they stay there. And it's like, no, your choice is to stay there. You can choose not to stay there. You can choose to give yourself a break, and sometimes it's just a matter of what would you be saying to someone else who you are trying to help through a similar situation. Would you be laying on the guilt with them? No, you wouldn't. You'd be telling them to cut themselves some slack. And we need to do that for ourselves too sometimes.
I agree.
Oftentimes.
Well, and I fully agree with that. It is so interesting to me how far I've come from being able to do what I do now compared to what I was incapable of doing. And that's just in my personal life, the way I view the world and how I'm able to interact with the world. My thinking hasn't changed any, but it's a matter of how do I put this to use right now? And when I'm talking with somebody who's in that overwhelm, who's just, I tell them, list it for me. I want to hear it. I want to hear just how bad it is.
Exactly.
Hit me with it. And all the while I'm like,
I hit one of those yesterday. Yeah, I hit one of those yesterday with technical problems with a couple programs. And they were affecting a client project. And materials that I had promised would be there, and through no fault of my own, and I had to step back. I had to take that pause and say, what I'm trying to do here is not working. I need to take a pause, take a break to fix this, and take that deep breath and email the client and say, this is what's happening. And I hate doing that. I hate an excuse for not delivering something that was intended to be there right then. But I I could,
reality.
I could wallow in it, or I could just be upfront with it,
Now, one other thing about that press pause and what you were just talking about, and we almost got there, is what hit me is that there's great value in having a friend, Kat happens to be mine. I need to rant. And that's our key to each other that says, yeah, go, let it loose. Because when you say it out loud, that sometimes that's all we need, and we're reminding ourselves, there's just nothing I could do. But sometimes during the rant, the other person, and you've done this for me, I've done it for you, where we say, we're able to offer a bit of perspective. And say, whoa, wait a second. Really? Is that something? You are not an N+ certified hardware specialist. You cannot fix your hard drive, sweetie. It's just not going to happen. So we get that extra perspective during our pause moment, and it's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful.
And we do our rants guilt-free, and we set up the parameters up front. I need to do a mini rant, and we know whether we're looking for advice to get through this through soothing words, or if we just need somebody to listen so we can speak it out, whether we type it out or actually speak it out. And it just helps dissipate it. And having those parameters is really what makes us being good rant partners. We don't do it often. We're selective about that, which is what I love.
Yeah.
Well, Charlene, thank you so much for these productivity tips. They seem simple. I know that people have trouble implementing them at times, but I think you've given us some really good guidelines for making them work for us better on a regular basis, despite our various personality types, or despite our tendencies to procrastinate, or the tendencies to have different types of habits, or work in different fields. Whatever the differences are, there's a commonality that we can rely on to help us be more productive in our own daily lives. So thank you again for being a wonderful guest. And this is Kat Sturtz from rockingyourpath.com, reminding you to view our next episode of Fast Action Fridays. And always remember to keep rocking your unique path to success. Bye.